Welcome to Advent of Tessellations 2024. My name is Madonna Yoder, and you're joining hundreds of folders around the world on this 25-day journey into the infinite world of repeating patterns folded from a single sheet of paper. You'll discover many different twists in this challenge, building up to advanced patterns with hybrid hexagon twists. On day 9 of Advent of Tess, we're folding this pattern that I call Pinwheel Forest. It has the same closed hexagon and open triangles that we saw in pinwheels, but then we're going to have rhombus twists to finish it off instead of more hexagons, whether on the front or on the back. So this is going to be a slightly easier day in terms of moves, but we will be adding a new twist, the closed rhombus. So let's go ahead and grab our grid and get started. I'm using 24 grid divisions, and as always, if you want to see a tutorial on how to fold this exact grid and get the crease pattern for today's lesson, if you haven't signed up for email reminders for Advent of Tess, go ahead and do that at training.gatheringfolds.com/advent, and you'll get that tutorial and the email reminders when each new video comes out, and also the crease pattern for today's tutorial and all of the other Advent of Tess tutorials as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm putting in a closed hexagon in the center, which means that my mountain fold is going straight to the corner on my right hand side, and my valley fold is one spacing above it. I'm folding both of those, holding that down on the table with my hand, passing it off to my left hand as I move to the next corner. Again, making the mountain fold straight out to the corner of the paper, folding that over onto the valley fold, holding that fully folded onto the table with my left hand as I move to fold the next pleat. And this will make sure that these pleats stay folded as I'm working my way around. This central area is very 3D, and the outer area is more flat, or at least once you put the pleat into the area, it goes flat. And with this sixth one in place, now I have all 6, and they're all down on the table, both the mountains and the valleys, and I can bring those pleats further in until I have 2 grid spacings of each mountain fold of the pleat lifting up into the air, and then I have my central hexagon tower that I will give a sharp twist to rotate around. It's going to rotate 120 degrees as I twist it down flat. And so I'm going to kind of dimple the center, then grab all the way around and squeeze a little as I give a sharp twist to get that to go flat. And it's not quite flat yet, so I'm going to look underneath, double check, make sure that my valley folds are actually on the grid lines that they're supposed to be on, and I can also double check all of those at once by looking at the back for a nice tight closed hole. Coming back to the side I folded the twist on, another cue I'm looking for here is that these mountain folds go straight all the way until they hit a corner of this hexagon twist. And I can use my bone folder to make sure everything is nice and flat. From here, I want to add the open triangle twists at 2 pleat spacing. So I'm going to have my valley folds 1 spacing away from the mountain folds. That's going to mean it's 2 spaces away from the valley under the existing pleat. My mountain is going to be 1 spacing farther from that, and it's called a tube because when this is folded, it creates this tube-like structure. Now these are open triangle twists, so I'm going to be erasing the extension of the existing pleat until I reach one grid triangle that's outlined. So another way of looking at that would be to say I'm going to outline this target grid triangle with mountain folds. This one is already in place. This one is already in place. I'm opening up until I have a mountain fold on that third edge of the triangle. That's going to extend out, and there's going to be a valley fold right next to it in the same orientation, rotationally speaking, as the other two pleats that are feeding into this triangle. And then we can go ahead and press to squash. And smooth everything out. In this pattern, unlike the last two patterns, the next twist at the intersection of the triangles is going to be on the same side as the triangles. So I'm going to work around counterclockwise so that when I put in my valley fold, one space from my folded mountain, and mountain fold one space further, and fold through, this overlap that forms is going to be easy to open on this side of the paper. So I can go ahead and squash that triangle twist. And on this side of the paper, opening this overlap is very straightforward. If we look at the other side of the paper, opening this overlap is like open one and then pop from the other side. Not very straightforward. So that would be so returning back to the side that we're folding our twists on, that overlap, the way I opened it on the other side, is what we would be dealing with for most of the overlaps if I worked the other way around. So continuing on in the same direction, so I did first this one, then I'll go to the next pleat coming out of the hexagon. I'm going to set up my tube pleat, and notice I don't have that mountain extending further to reference, but I do have this whole valley fold underneath, and my new valley is going to be 2 spaces away from that. And I'm opening the pleat coming from the hexagon to find the third direction of mountain fold for my open triangle twist, and squashing, making sure as I do all of this that the pre-existing pleat from the previous triangle stays fully folded. And rotating around will repeat exactly. So I've got that valley fold. You can think of it as 1 space from this folded mountain, or 2 spaces from this valley underneath. The 2 spaces from the valley underneath is what you'll see in the crease pattern if you've signed up for those email reminders. Or you can see the crease pattern by getting the Advent of Tess ebook at gatheringfolds.com, which has 2 different ways of repeating this pattern on a larger grid. And rotating again, I have 1 more repeat that's exactly the same. And then for my final triangle, got 1 last pleat coming out of the hexagon. I'm going to have that same pleat that we always saw coming down into this area below. And then for this upper area, what I would rather do in this situation, actually, I'll just leave it. I'll leave it because there's benefits to both ways. of overlapping these pleats. I'll leave that one as an example. So you can see I do not have strong opinions about precisely which way all the overlaps should go. This is something where there are small benefits some of the time to doing it one way versus the other. So I'm going to show first the way that we overlapped for 5 of them, and then I'll show the other overlap because you may have done your triangles in a different order. You may have a different mix of these overlaps. So I'm going to do the easier one to open first. So these are going to be easier to open and easier to find the pleats for like the 4 pleats of the twist. So that's what we're working with. That's the trade-off. The one that's easier to open, I'm going to pop it up, and with the right triangle twist, and I just did something a little deceptive by pushing that there. So with this twist, this is a closed rhombus twist, and I'm going to have one grid line that stays a mountain fold on both sides of this twist. And that is this one coming from the upper triangle, if we say upper and lower triangle. And then another grid line that is going to jump one grid spacing between the 2 sides. And that's these grid directions there. So the key feature here, if I fold all of those as mountain folds, the key feature that I'm looking for is this double diamond. So 2 grid spacing, 2 grid triangles forming a diamond. And those are on either side of the through line, the grid line that stays a mountain the whole way through. And these are extremely similar. In fact, I might go as far as to say identical little points to the ones we saw around the open hexagon twist in yesterday's video. So if you're familiar with the open hexagon twist, that is going to be more of a clue for you. If not, you might want to revisit a video that I did on what twists are used in the Advent of Tess series, where I'm very explicit about like, okay, this part of the rhombus is identical to this part of the open hexagon, and this part of the rhombus is identical to the closed triangle, because there's all of those working together in here. And so the thing to remember is like, this is the locations of the mountain folds, and then the valley folds are further away from whatever is being outlined by mountains. The valley folds are always further away. They're never touching whatever central area we have. And this mountain fold that goes through, on one side the valley is below, and the other side the valley is above. So that's our closed rhombus twist, and I'm going to press from the top to squash. And now on that overlap that is a little bit harder to open, as I open it up, I want to be very careful to preserve this mountain fold, to preserve that mountain fold as I'm opening that up, because those are precisely the mountain folds that I need for this twist. Notice the mountain fold from the upper triangle is continuing straight through. We're just putting the valleys on opposite sides. The mountain fold from the lower triangle is jumping over one grid spacing as it crosses the through line. That was already there. We're just putting this valley on the opposite side. And then we can get to our rhombus twist. So there's pluses and minuses of each of these overlaps for folding the closed rhombus twist. I tend to come slightly down on the side of, okay, this is just easier to open. And so what you want to be looking for, so given the context that we're in of maybe you haven't folded many twists before, you're looking for the intersection point of these two mountain folds. And this intersection is coming together at a 60-degree angle. So the fold that's layered on top of these two pleats coming together at 60 degrees is going to be the one that continues through straight. And then we've got this little triangle that's mirrored on the opposite side. Well, not mirror precisely, not like sending your next pleat off like this. That's a different twist. But it's rotationally symmetric, copied on the other side. And so we see this triangle with the pleat going this way. On the other side, that pleat is going to start on the other end and continue off in the same, in math speak, basis vector, but same direction. These are parallel grid lines. And then we can press from the top to squash. So given that I have folded hundreds, if not thousands, of these rhombus twists, when I'm opening a pleat overlap, I'm going pop and then pop up on the through line and making sure to leave space to then pinch the diagonal pleat one spacing away from the existing one. And that can look like magic when you're not familiar with these twists, but now you've seen these examples where I've drawn on exactly how to do it. So for me, it's open the pleat, pop the bottom layer down. I've already identified that this line will be the through line. So as I pop up, I make sure that that grid line is a mountain. And then I have my thumb positioned so that I can grab the next diagonal. So then if we do that at full speed, that would be down, up, pinch, pinch, rhombus. I'm not expecting you to be folding at that speed quite yet. Maybe not for another 100 tessellations, we'll see. But it's good to know that this doesn't have to be a very slow process. It can be pretty quick to get these twists in place. And so over the next couple days, we're going to be exploring a variety of patterns that use hexagon, then triangle, then rhombus. And we're going to be going through all the combinations of what sides of the paper these twists are on. So the hexagon starts on one side, and then the triangles are either on the same or opposite side. And then the rhombi are either on the same or the opposite side. So today we did all three the same. Tomorrow we're going to have the same center, but with the rhombus twists on the opposite side. And then the next day we're going to have the hexagon and then the triangles on the back side and the rhombi on the same side as the hexagon. And then for day 12, we're going to have the hexagon on one side and then all the other twists on the other side. So that's all four of the permutations of triangle front back, rhombus front back, given a hexagon on the front. And by the way, if the hexagon was on the back, then it would be equivalent permutations, just flipping the paper over. So that's what's going on with Pinwheel Forest. Like I mentioned, there's multiple ways to repeat this pattern. The simplest way is to say, okay, this rhombus, whatever happened on one side of it is exactly the same as what's going to happen on the other side of it. So these two rhombi are exactly identical in the broader pattern. So what happens on one side is the same as what happens on the other side. And the thing to really pay attention to is whether a pleat is coming from a pointy corner or from a fat corner of a rhombus. So given that these rhombi are in those positions where things on opposite sides are the same, aka positions of twofold rotational symmetry, that puts the position of threefold rotational symmetry in an empty space between a set of alternating rhombus, triangle, rhombus, triangle, rhombus, triangle. So a loop of 6 twists is going to contain the threefold rotationally symmetric position. Now that's not the only way to apply symmetry to this pattern, and the second pattern in the Advent of Tess ebook has a different way of repeating, but it is the simplest way that applies to all of the patterns that we're going to work on in the next couple days that go hexagon, then triangle, then rhombus. And I like to define it as hexagon, triangle, rhombus, triangle, or hex, tri, rhomb, tri, or HTRT for short, because that's the characteristic loop that defines the broader pattern. So happy folding, everyone. Don't forget to share what you fold on Instagram or Facebook. Tag me at Gathering Folds so I can see what you folded and share it with everyone else. And also using the hashtag Advent of Tess or Advent of Tess 24 is another good way to help other people to find what you folded. So happy folding, everyone. And I'll see you tomorrow when we'll be folding the same center with the rhombi on the opposite side. See you there.